Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and we are on the second book of the Immortals tetralogy, and this book is Wolfspeaker. I enjoy this book. It is my least favorite out of the four of them, mostly because I feel this is a precursor to some of the really heavy-handedness that is the reason why I stopped reading Tamora Pierce books. And it's that Tamora Pierce, when she decides to get up on her soapbox, can be extremely heavy-handed. In this particular case, the story involved here is that Daine and her teacher, Numer, are basically called to a small valley fief, Dunlath, by the wolf pack that Daine ran with when she lost track of being human. Because you see, in the first book, we learned the story of how when Daine's family was killed by raiders or whatever they were called, she lost track of her humanity and basically became a wolf mentally. And because her wild magic was so very strong, it kind of went out of control, and her connection to animals just sort of took over her brain. Except she lacked the skill that she develops in this book, which we'll get to in a moment. And so instead of, as she learns to do later in this book, actually transforming into the animals, she was just a human who thought she was a wolf. Anyways, so the Long Lake Pack, they basically ask Daine to come help them because they've left where they used to live in Gala near Scarsdale, where she used to live. And they've moved to the Fief Dunlath because it's a great place for wolves to live, and so they've decided to move there because it's got good hunting and all kinds of stuff. And then a bunch of humans have started mining and basically ruining everything. So they've decided, we know a human. We're going to ask a human to talk to the other humans and make the humans stop doing things that will ruin everything. And the thing is that in the course of this book, we get a very, very, very heavy-handed metaphor about prejudice. In particular, one suspects racism, where Daine in the previous book, the Stormwings are a kind of a scavenger immortal, hence the Immortals title of the series, that basically you have a whole bunch of magical creatures that are effectively immortal in that if you don't kill them, they will live forever. Kind of like those jellyfish that if you don't kill them will live forever. Anyways, so the thing is that these immortals have started to return from the realms of the gods, which is where they live or used to live. And they've started to return to, regular old planet, not Earth. I actually have a personal theory regarding this, which I suspect is entirely not canon, but I can talk about my headcanon some other time. The thing is, I don't remember if I talked about my headcanon in the course of the Lioness Rampant tetralogy, but anyways. So, Stormwings are one of those, and they're basically birds with incredibly sharp steel, silver, I don't know, maybe if you want to go Star Wars-y cortosis wings, and with human heads, and they smell awful, and basically what they do is they befoul the bodies of the dead and feed off of human fear. And the thing is that in the first book, they hunted Daine and her friends. They were messengers for the Emperor's Zone, or at the very least, the people who were totally not working for the Emperor, even though everybody knows that they are. But this is one of those, conventions that we maintain in the world because otherwise everybody would be constantly at war. These minimal, if you can't actually prove it, then you don't do anything sorts of rules, which, I mean, this is how we maintain civilized society. Is if you can't prove a thing, go away. Anyways, so they were representatives of the enemy. They've been working for the enemy. It's actually pretty darned clear in this book that they have been brought in and are working for the bad guys. And so Daine has a not wholly irrational assumption that you should just kill them. Just kill them. Just shoot them, get them out of the sky, because they're going to be coming for you, so you should just do it. And what happens is, from the very start of the book, everybody is constantly telling Daine, stop being so prejudiced, you're making assumptions, don't just shoot them, you should, give them a chance to prove themselves, which is, on the one hand, I get the message, but on the other hand, it is very, very heavy-handed, given Daine's previous experience and the fact that we know perfectly well they are actually working for the bad guys. Like, by the end of this book, I still say Daine would have been justified to shoot them because they're working for the bad guys. They're not actually, genuinely there. But the idea, of course, is that you shouldn't just be prejudiced because of a person's, in this particular case, there being a Stormwing, but it's fairly heavy-handed about the whole racial thing. In the meantime, you have Daine, who's getting super aggravated with Mora because Mora is scared of wolves, and Daine is like, wolves don't attack people. These wolves are my friends. They're not going to attack people. And Mora's like, well, everyone has always told me that wolves will attack people. To be fair to the real world, you probably shouldn't approach a wolf because wolves are predators, and you will probably be a very, very convenient snack. And I suspect wolves are not actually so picky as to not hunt humans, despite what this book says. Anyways, just on general principles of, hey, look, there's food. But the thing is that Daine is constantly aggravated because Mora's always going, well, everyone always tells me that wolves are dangerous, and of course doesn't see the irony of her, being so aggressive towards Stormwings, who are Mora's friends, because Raikash the Stormwing has, struck up a friendship with Mora, and they kind of like each other. Not in a romantic way. Mora's like 10, and Raikash is just being like, her favorite uncle. A nice uncle, not the scary uncle or the creepy uncle. He's like a nice guy. Anyways, and so it's very, very heavy-handed. With, this metaphor, with the whole thing. Now, that aside, this is a really, really important book in this series of books, because this is the book where we really start getting a genuine taste of, where we get this genuine taste of where Daine's powers could theoretically go, because in the first book, you just have healing and talking to animals. But in this one, Daine learns that she can transform into animals. And the way this is revealed to her is unfortunately not in somebody saying, if you pay close attention and, sort of glue your mind to an animal, then you can turn into that animal. It's more oh my god, I've turned halfway into a squirrel and I am sore and tired and scared and I still have squirrel feet. What do I do? And I think that the badger was a little bit unfair. Which is another reason that this is not my favorite in the series, because I think the badger was genuinely unfair. I tend to have a very great deal of sympathy for people in books who are not being treated in a way that I personally deem to be fair. Anyways, so, but at the same time, this has a lot of the same, adventure of the first 4 books. It's showing fewer of the seams that, Alana, that the, Lioness Rampant series did, because, of course, the Lioness Rampant is, like, among the, if not the first book that Pierce published, tetralogy, and so, there are flaws in there that have been smoothed out here. And Daine is a really, really interesting character because she kind of bounces back and forth between being really, really mature and being really immature, because she's still just 14. And so there's a lot there that is immature, but at the same time, she has gone through a lot before now. And of course, even as a child, the constant harassment and bullying from other people, because she is, of course, a bastard child. It is in her name, Sarah Shri, that is Sarah's daughter, as opposed to whatever her father's name is, something that does get revealed in the 4th book, and we will get there when we get there. But the thing in this book is that Daine vacillates a lot more in this book between being immature and being grown up, in a way that kind of contrasts with the first book, which, whereas in the first book she is very, very unsure of herself, and much more reticent about putting herself forward and, making suggestions and things like that, her confidence has grown, and so consequently her attempts to sort of push herself forward have started to kick in, and it's an interesting character development that makes her seem less mature than the first book. But it's sort of a clever reflection of the fact that because she's more competent, she's more likely to make more active decisions, and somebody who is less experienced, who isn't as mature, etc., is more likely to make bad decisions than somebody who's more mature. And so there are things in this book that make her a less sympathetic character, but it's a nice stepping stone, a nice sort of fit in the whole maturity thing. And I really hate the phrase coming of age, because I honestly find that the calling anything a coming of age book usually manages to minimize everything else that's going on in the plot. And Daine's big thing in this is also learning that there have been some consequences to her earlier actions, consequences that she could not possibly have known, could not possibly have prepared for, because the wolves, helping by licking her wounds clean, have effectively swallowed some of her blood, and because she has all of this wild magic in her, it's affected their intellect. It's made them smarter in a more human, more organized way. And so, now there's a terrifying thought. Wolves able to think like human people, they would probably take over the world. Anyways, and so it's an interesting a book that it's very much about, consequences and things of that nature. There's less adventure in this one than I think in the other 3 in the series. This one is focusing very, very hard on a lot of personal growth for Daine, which, I don't care about personal growth because I'm shallow. So anyways, that's everything that I have to say, and I will see you all next week.